The I am statements from the Gospel of John. John chapter 6, verse 35. Jesus said to them, I am the bread of life. Whoever comes to me will never be hungry, and whoever believes in me will never be thirsty. John chapter 8, verse 12. Again, Jesus spoke to them, saying, I am the light of the world. Whoever follows me will never walk in darkness, but will have the light of life. John chapter 10, verses 7 through 9. So again, Jesus said to them, very truly, I tell you, I am the gate for the sheep. All who come before me are thieves and bandits, but the sheep did not listen to them. I am the gate. Whoever enters by me will be saved and will come in and go out and find pasture. John chapter 10, verse 11. I am the good shepherd. The good shepherd lays down his life for the sheep. John chapter 11, verse 25. Jesus said to her, I am the resurrection and the life. Those who believe in me, even though they die, will live. John chapter 14, verse 6. Jesus said to him, I am the way and the truth and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me. John chapter 15, verse 1. I am the true vine, and my Father is the vine grower.
Welcome, welcome. Thank you so much for having me. How is everyone today? Good. So I have my stopwatch here because I'm going to make sure that I stay on time. I won't, but I will try. I first want to thank you for being here. I know that when you saw the bulletin sent to you in the email, you could have chosen not to come. So I appreciate that you've come today. I was challenged when I was asked to give this sermon, I have my 7 pages here, to incorporate the word mycelia in the beginning, at any point in my sermon. And so I decided that I'm done now and I can be done. Right? But instead, I thought that this could give us a really good word picture about Christ and being verbs and connectors, because that's what we're talking about today. The mycelia is the microscopic network that connects the fruiting bodies, i.e. the mushroom, which actually aren't actually a vegetable or a fruit. They're just a fruiting body. I know, wild. Anyway, the mycelia is the network that connects. And the mushroom is the thing that produces the spore, or the thing that creates life. The mushroom expends these spores and recreates the same type of mushroom with these microscopic mycelia as connectors. Which, interestingly enough, if you have a hard cheese and you see mold on the hard cheese, it's okay to just cut it off and keep eating the cheese. But if you have a soft cheese that you see mold on, even a small amount of mold, you should throw it away. Why? Because that microscopic network has already burrowed deep into the cheese to create connectors and to break it down. Interestingly enough, mushrooms are used for so many things that we don't normally think about. Well, fungus in general, mold. They're used as vegetables in our salads, penicillin, like medicine. They're used as environmental protectants, ecosystem restoration, and several other things that I couldn't put on my list. So we can see that mold actually can function as so many different things that we may not have known, but that mycelia, that thing that we started with, that connector, is so important. And let's talk about why, because we have to do an English lesson next. So first we're going to talk about subjects, verbs, and connectors. Right? No, okay. I do really want to talk about that. I know that this is a sermon, but I promise it all comes together. Subjects are a person, place, thing, or idea, essentially a noun, that describes a thing that is happening, right? It's the actual person or thing that's doing an action. Oftentimes a word or a sentence is a subject and a verb. So The subject, great, we got that, it's the noun. The verb is the word that describes action: jumping, running, kicking, screaming, running away, all of those things. But what is really important about the subject and verb connectors is that in English and several other Indo-European languages, we have what's called a being verb. A being verb is in the main form of to be, meaning that it helps us connect. We're bringing in the mycelia, remember? It helps us connect the subject to what the verb is doing. They are am, is, are, was, were, be, being, been. And interestingly, we see that am, is, are, was, were, be, being, been. By the end of this, you'll probably have them all memorized. I am is extremely important. Am as a connector. But because am, also being a being verb, creates connection, it also can be the entirety of the sentence. And we're going to talk about that in just a second. So without getting into how we might conjugate all of these verbs, because we couldn't. We could have a very lively discussion about how we conjugate the to be verbs, present, past, and participle, and past participle, and I think that could be really great. We're not here for that. We are going to talk about how they function to help us understand who we are. They're pretty powerful. I am or I am not help guide others' perspectives and perceptions and how we identify or reject how we can be or not be for someone else. The passages that we read in today's reading were no exception. Jesus shared who he was to the people, sometimes in unique ways. But to think that those were the only 7 things that Jesus said about him is ridiculous. Did you know that just in the last, if I had read all of this, I had used over 45 being verbs, just in the 3 paragraphs I talked to you about before this. 45. There are over 2,800 instances of I am in the Bible. So we really care a whole lot about telling everybody who we are, who we're connected to, who we connect with, and who we are not. Let that settle for a second. We are so intent on telling people who we are that we have an entire subsect of the English language dedicated to it. We really want people to know us. We have an intense, driving need to be loved and to be fully known. And so we get to use the I am statements to help us do that. So these 7 I am statements in John's gospel are: I am the bread of life. I am the light of the world. I am the gate for the sheep. I am the good shepherd. I am the resurrection and the life. I am the way, the truth, and the life. And I am the true vine. God identifies himself as simply, I am. Kind of like the world's best Mad Libs game. Because God can be all things. And so we know that there are 7. And let me just say, I could dive into each and every one of these, and we would be here for a solid 3 hours. And it would be great, and I would love it, and you would love it, I'm sure. But I was told with no uncertain terms that I should be between 15 and 20 minutes. So what I've decided is I'm gonna pull out just 3 of my favorites, and we'll see if I have enough time for them. I think it's gonna be fine. And we're gonna talk through a little bit about a brief overview of what those things mean, because I think that they're important to see why John used them. In the first one, John 6:35, and I'm gonna read that for you again so you have it fresh on the mind. We begin our journey of further understanding Jesus when he says, Jesus said, I am the bread of life. Whoever comes to me will never be hungry, and whoever believes in me will never be thirsty. But I said to you that you have seen me, and yet do not believe. One theologian wrote that these 7 statements are the first in a series of monumentous I am movements that move us towards a further and deeper understanding of Christ. This statement is unique because in the Greek, never is an emphatic statement that a person, i.e. Jesus, can provide sustenance that food and water will never be able to provide. So God provides us something that we will never get, but only through him, because he is our bread of life. Not only does this further deepen our understanding of Jesus, we're able to receive and understand more of Jesus than water or bread could ever provide, but we can experience it forever without ending. Imagine how much you could be transformed by God in your life if you are able to accept that he can fill you spiritually, wholly, and completely forever. In the second I am statement, in 8:12, he writes again. And again, Jesus spoke to them, I am the light of the world. Whoever follows me will never walk in darkness, but will have the light of life. Jesus is discussed in this passage as light. But interestingly, the word light in the Bible oftentimes references God. It references God as symbolism and in his holiness, meaning that Jesus is not only God, but the only light that helps us see in the darkness. Now, if you've been here, you remember that Linda said that Jesus was on the fringes of society. And in this case, he said this during the Feast of Tabernacle, or the Feast of Sukkot, or the Feast of Booths. And it was the last of the 7 feasts that the Lord commanded of Israel. So it's this end pinnacle feast where they come together and they come to Israel. And the most prominent light symbolism involved extremely large illuminated lampstands, or menorahs, placed in the temple's court of women, where the light was so bright that it reportedly lit up the entire city of Jerusalem, representing God's glory and the coming of the great light, as prophesied in the Bible. And Jesus said that he's the light. In front of all of these priests. And they later go on to say that you must be wrong because you can't be the light. And if you read further, he talks about how he is the light. And he has been given the ability to be the light, which we could get into and talk about. Again, we could spend hours on this. But we can trust that Jesus really can do and say things that move him to the outside of our society, to the outside of the picture that we expected of him, claiming that he was the real light, not the large lampstand that we were provided. This separated Jesus from the priests, but provided us a unique picture that even when the world is telling us something is okay or right, Jesus can be our light to weed out the truth. You'll see that later Jesus says that he is the truth, he is the light, and he claims as a connector that he is both of those things. We're not talking about that particular, but it's a good one if you're feeling it. Not only has Jesus given us the light in the darkness and his sustenance, but he's also our ultimate protector. Now, this one's my favorite. So listen here. In John 10:11, he writes, I am the good shepherd. The good shepherd lays down his life for the sheep. Now, at first reading, you may think, okay, so he's a shepherd. What does that have to do with me? And you'd be right. Until we realize that shepherds were an extremely dangerous job. Lions, wolves, jackals, panthers, leopards, bears, and even hyenas were all commonplace in the countryside. And we even see that when David fights at least one lion and one bear in 1 Samuel when he's fighting Goliath and says to the king at the time that he will be able to defeat even this foe. So it was an important word picture to share that Jesus was there not only to protect and to prepare for us. There's this concept in attachment theory that I use quite frequently that says that we all need a safe haven and a secure base. And with a safe haven and a secure base, we are then able to go out and risk it all because we know that when we come home, we have safety and security. And so what God is saying not only is that he's a shepherd in this really dangerous job that we don't know anything about, but that he is our ultimate protector, and that when we come home, when we come back to him, even if we leave, even if we decide not to follow, when we come home, he's there. He's there to say, welcome back. Thank you so much. I love you, and I've been here the whole time. So imagine if we lived our lives in fear because we have someone who will prepare for us and protect us. How would we be different? Who could you be if you knew acceptance and understanding were waiting for you right when you come home? In this season of Advent and Christmas, this is the best time to celebrate. But it's not only because Jesus is I am. It's because he has been I am for the eternity of existence. But he not only did that because he sacrificed for us on the cross, we aren't just celebrating a baby. We aren't just celebrating his birth. We're celebrating Jesus because of all he could be for us, all he was for us, and all he will be for us. That's why this is such a big deal. So do you think if I shared all the breadth of my knowledge that I have about someone, or mold, that I would have encapsulated the entire essence of their being? No, of course not. I wouldn't. So just because John gave us 7 I am statements, it doesn't mean that we can effectively encapsulate all of him. Those are just the things that John wrote down, only the parts that John thought were the most important or that moved his narrative forward. So what facets of Christ do you need? Or what facets of Christ have you forgotten about? Or haven't acknowledged? Or better yet, what area of your life do you think are mundane and couldn't possibly be helped by God? Or you forgot about Christ because it just doesn't occur to you? My goal today was to challenge you to bring Jesus into every area of your life. Because do you know what happens when we do that? When we bring Christ into our lives to impact and infuse our being, our stress goes down, our ability to impact others goes up, our relationships get better, and the area of our lives that don't work begin to get cut out. Christ gives us so much. Are you willing to receive it? Are you open to him? And as I close, I just want to say that if I had read this word for word, I would have added an additional 45 being verbs. I want to thank you so much for letting me speak. And I'm only at 17 minutes, so I did so well. And as you're leaving today, I want you to remember that the Lord is your I am, and it's okay to look for him. Thank you so much. I want to remind you in this holiday season to look up and look to Christ, because he not only is I am, but my friend said to me earlier that we are so interested in who God calls himself to be. And my response to him was, right, because there's so many names, because he can be all of that to you. I hope that you go in peace and have a blessed day. Thank you so much.